Because you got a lot of, to be honest, you caught a lot of flack for all the acquisitions that you made.
Yeah. I catch a lot of flack for any fucking thing I do.
Yeah.
Calm down.
Gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new episode, actually a special episode of the Commissioner's Report, a CGI Madden League podcast. We are of course, a Madden 21 franchise league on PlayStation 4. Maybe eventually we'll be on PlayStation 5 if anybody can get one. And this podcast is, of course, brought to you by the commissioners of the CGI Madden League. I am your head commissioner, The Game 836. I can be followed on Twitter. I can be followed on Instagram. I also stream on Twitch and YouTube. Mainly stream my Madden games on YouTube at _Game 836. Tonight, I'm joined by two of my three co-commissioners. Unfortunately, the Solution 113 wasn't able to make it tonight. He's a working man, so we'll catch up with him on the next episode, hopefully. But until then, we do have, of course, the Enforcer is back with us, as always. Red Boy Lightning, what's good?
What's going on? Glad to be back with another episode of the Commissioner's Report.
It's not just another episode, man. This is the GM 101 episode.
Right? Yeah, man. I'm excited for this one, man. I'm excited.
And then, of course, we're joined by our other co-commissioner, who he's not just a co-commissioner anymore. He's got a trophy next to his name.
You goddamn right.
He's got is the trophy there in the background? You have it?
No.
No, you ain't getting it? Okay.
Bro, man, send it to me yet. Send it to me yet.
All right. Shipping is a little slower due to COVID, but it's okay. We'll get it to you. CGI Bowl champion, Wakanda, Madden 88 Titan Thanos is with us tonight. What's up, man? How's it going?
Man, what's up, fellas? How y'all doing, man? I'm excited for this episode. This is going to be a fun episode, man. Got two of my guys in this joint.
It is, and we'll get to them in a second. We don't want to spend too much time on this part because we'll save it for the next episode. Like I said, I don't want to do too much non-GM related stuff this episode, but just want to real quick just get your thoughts on your run through the CGI Bowl that you just recently got.
I think it ties into GMing. Just had a bit of luck, and you know what? I credit my defense. My defense played solid throughout that entire playoff run. And that Khalil Mack trade, it took me over the top. It took me over the top because it added another pass rusher to the one I already drafted, and Chandler Jones. And them three, they went to work. Playoffs. So I don't want to get into it too much because, like you said, we'll talk about it next podcast. But defense, a little bit of luck, and sticking to the system. Stick to your system. Whatever your system is, no matter how bad the game is going, just stick to it. You will see you get a little bit of Madden luck.
There you go. There's an early gem there that you're gonna get a lot of gems throughout this episode. But like you said, we're being joined by two special guests tonight. First and foremost, let's introduce. I mean, we talk about him on the podcast. He probably gets more name drops on the podcast than anybody ever.
Yes, he does.
In the history of a podcast. He's a 4-time CGI Bowl champion. I got that right? He don't even know. He don't even know how many times. He's won so many CGI Bowls. He don't even know how many he won.
I don't even know, man.
We're joined by the Dream Kid, currently our owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. What's up, man? Welcome to the podcast.
What's up, everybody? I'm here, ready to drop these points. Let's get it.
All right. He's here flexing his virtual background. He's got the branded Under Armour Baltimore Ravens virtual background. He's flexing on us.
Had to put something together, man.
and then we're also being joined by one of our savvy veterans in the league. Everybody respects this man as one of the cleanest sim players that there is out there in the league. You never hear a complaint about him. You may hear a complaint from him, but you ain't gonna hear a complaint about him. he may put you in your place, but he might be our backup enforcer. He is we call him Train, and he is the owner of our current Buffalo Bills team. Welcome to the podcast, Train.
What's up, fellas? What's up, man? Yeah, no Super Bowls here.
Oh,
None of that. So I don't have any
Not yet.
accolades. I got the complaining accolade. Yeah, you're going to hear some complaints. You're going to hear from me. You're going to hear from me.
Your accolades is that you're one of our longest standing members and one of our most respected members.
Indeed.
We'll leave it there for now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll take it.
Trophy's on the way. So, we're joined by those two gentlemen, as well as, of course, we have our commish board. And this episode, like we mentioned last week, we're here to break it down. It's time to get the entire league on the same page in terms of what it means to be a GM. Because you can load up the game and play every week, play all your games, and sure, you can have some success. But what separates the elites from the not so elites, aside from gameplay, is also going to be the other big part of the game, which is being a GM and being a team builder and how to navigate building your team. So that's what we're here to talk about tonight. This is episode Being a GM 101 is what we're going to call it. All right. So let's jump into it. So I guess we should start from the beginning, where, of course, we have team selection. We have our team selection episode that we do every year. And no matter the hand that you're dealt, whether you're a commission, you're picking in the top 4, or whether you're a new member who's picking in the bottom half of the draft, once you select your team, it's important to, for one, don't get down on yourself on whatever team that you got. If it wasn't the team that you wanted, that's fine, because we're in it for the long haul. We've traditionally gone 7 seasons. In one anomaly year, we went 8 seasons deep. And in the long haul, you can turn that team around and build that team into the type of team that you want to compete with, no matter the team that you come with, no matter the team that you select. I think I remember back in our team selection episode, if I remember correctly, it was either Red Boy or Wakanda was kind of like shitting on, I don't know, maybe it was probably like a team like the Bengals or something like that. And I brought up the points of, well, I mean, if you look at it this way, it's not all bad with the Bengals. I mean, you're getting this, you're getting that, you're getting that. And then you have these pieces here and there and there. You just need to build around that. And both of them were like, I didn't see it like that. You're actually kind of right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like that. I mean, you can make it look like that for any team. You can take the Jets and you can turn them around. I mean, we got somebody here who's done that a couple of times. We got 2 people here who've turned the Jets around a couple of times. You can take the Buffalo Bills and create them into something. You can take the Jacksonville Jaguars and turn them into. You can take any team and turn it into your own monster and what works best for you. So just kind of speaking to that, if you want to start, Chris, Red Boy, if you want to start, just kind of, what after team selection is done, what's the next step from there?
So after team selection is done, in my humble opinion, first thing you need to do is identify who your core players are going to be, who's going to lead your team, and how you're going to build that team in your image, so to speak. You need to identify types of players at certain positions that have certain attributes, certain height, weight, a bunch of those type of things that'll tell you, all right, well, I want to put this player here. I'm looking for this type of player. I'm looking for that type of player. And you build around that. You identify first that core nucleus, and then you build around it. That's your foundation, so to speak. I know for me, in particular, the first thing I look at when I'm choosing the team is the offensive line.
Surprise!
That's the first thing I look at. It's a movie called The Blind Side. I don't know if y'all have ever seen it. It's got Sandra Bullock, and it's the story about Michael O or whatever. The first scene that comes on, the opening scene, she says, the first thing that you buy is a house. The second thing that you buy is the insurance on the house. The blind side left tackle or the blind side right tackle if you got a left-handed quarterback. Your foundation, my foundation for my teams, and it could be something different for you, for all of y'all, is the offensive line. And so I build around my offensive line.
Okay.
That's the first thing I do after team selection.
Yeah. What would you say, kid? What's one of the first things that would you agree with that, or is there something more to it than just looking for your core?
Yeah, I would look for my core. And then once I get the core, I look at the ages, what position they play, attributes, stuff like that. Then once I do that, I figure out, okay, I can build around this guy, and et cetera, and go down the list and just go from there.
Now, Wakanda, he said age there. That's something that recently I had to kind of wing you into. You were somebody that liked to go and grab every 39-year-old Joe Hayden that you could find.
Well, you guys know me. I like to have a solid locker room, and nothing like a solid locker room with vets. But so when you told me that, I use that to my advantage this Madden. So what I look for when I drafted the Cardinals this year was where are the holes at? Because wherever the holes are at, that's where I'm going to look for in the future of that's where I'm going to build. I'm going to build them next year, but then I'm just going to strengthen my core, like everybody else is saying, right then and there. So I'm looking to fill my holes. Go to free agency. If I can do some trades quick early in the season, that's not going to cost me too much. And then I go from there.
Train, you're traditionally someone who traditionally in your early seasons of CGI, you start kind of slow. We'll be honest.
Yeah, no, very slow. Very slow. It's okay. It's all right.
But there ends up being a method to your madness where in the later seasons, I mean, it clearly turns around. And what's a part of that? Not non-gameplay aside, what's a part of that when it comes to team building for you?
Normally it's just the money and how I guess how I draft, because normally it is the gameplay at all times. Picking up the game. Once I pick up the game, at that point I've already drafted high maybe about 3 or 4 times. So, when people were winning, they have older players, and now they drafting their young bucks, but mine have already matured. So now my early draft picks are 20, 25, 26. So they ready to go. So now my team has caught up to others. Right. In the beginning, normally you have a couple sorry teams, but then you have, your Chiefs and things like that. But everybody is around the same overall. It's just a different style. But now, people start building those super teams, but mine has caught up to theirs as they've lost their 99 overalls or traded them and, they 32, 33. But now my guys in the 90s and 25, 26.
Boom.
So then that's how I catch up.
Yep. I guess part of it for me is not only identifying what the core of my team is going to be and who the young players are that I plan to build around, but also identifying who my trade assets are. I'm immediately looking at, okay, I don't really need this guy here. I have a young player at this position, so I want to get rid of this veteran so that young player can play right away. Things of that sort. I'm looking for what my trade assets are right off the break so I can get ready to get that trade block up and get players moved so I can start getting either my younger players more playing time right away or bring in a piece that someone else hasn't valued very well and bring them into my system where I am going to value them. Take, for example, before week 1 started, I went and acquired Gary and Conley and Chidobe Awuzie from the Texans and Cowboys, respectively. Neither one of those teams valued them. Both of them have been my starting corners for 3 seasons right off the break. You know what I mean? This is one of those things where you kind of identify right away, hey, cornerback doesn't have the depth that I like. I don't like these guys, particularly as starters. Let me go and see if any other teams are not valuing some corners that I can possibly slide into my system, and they can start for me in the long term. And they're both here. They are both on their second year or their third year out of 5-year deals. Long term starters in my eyes, for example. So that's definitely a huge part of it for me as far as starting off. As a new league year is identifying not only your core, but identifying who your trade assets are. Now, another part of it, which we always seem to run into a problem with eventually, is money. And and I think part of the problem is that, in that first season, people make so many moves that they don't even pay attention to the money off the break. They wait until the off season, when in a lot of ways you waited that long and didn't even realize how your cap situation was. It's almost too late now to fix it.
It's too late.
Listen, the money is everything. Tell everybody, go to the salaries and check, click on the how many years they have left on the team and go from there, because that shit will mess you up long term if you do not pay attention to your money. That is one of the key things that you have to do. And I know I used to have this problem, and I know a lot of other people in the league have the problem. You have to let people go. I don't care how good of a talent that they are. If they are not your core, like Kid and Red Boy and all of us have just said, you gotta let them go. You know what I mean? If you can't find them for trade bait, you just gotta take the L and let them hit free agency, because you can overspend on a person that you can kind of find and get an upgrade in the draft the following year if you do it right.
I feel like that's a pride thing, where sometimes, people don't fall for the bait of wanting to trade for somebody that you're kind of trying to get rid of. So out of spite, you end up re-signing that person, and now you're stuck with somebody that you don't really use that well or that effectively on a long-term deal that's eating up a large sum of your cap. I feel like it's a pride thing more than anything.
Absolutely.
I think it's definitely a pride thing. I think it's definitely a pride thing of, okay, well, you didn't send the offer, or I couldn't get the offer for this player that I wanted, so I'm going to show you, and I'm going to show whoever else I was in negotiations with. This player ain't going nowhere. Well, now you got, a 29-year-old or a 30-year-old person that's going to regress in the next season or two, and he's eating up $25 million of your cap every year. That don't make no sense.
Man, listen. Chandler Jones had a great run. I gave him the franchise tag this year because I was being stubborn. I can't let him go.
Yeah.
I can't let him go. Next season, he's going to be a free agent, and I can't trade him because it's not really going to be good value, because what is it? His tag is $16 million. The penalty is going to be $16 million. I made that mistake, so I got to eat that. So Chandler Jones is going to be a free agent next season. It's going to hurt to let him go, but I got to let him go. He has to go.
Yeah, and that's something else. I mean, we had situations. We haven't run into it too much this year, but Madden 20, we had a couple situations where, early trades with large cap penalties, and people just not realizing how deep the cap penalties can cut into your future. And and that's why we eventually had to come up with the ability to do our amnesty, where we charge a user, what is it, multiple first round picks, or is it a first and a second?
First and second round.
We charge them their first and the second of the upcoming draft to erase their cap penalties. It can be a big price to pay, especially if you didn't plan for that and acquire other first and seconds. But
most players don't.
Yeah, but the big thing is use that salary screen. The salary screen, I believe you navigate to it under the roster tab. You go to that salary screen, and you just need to pay attention to those numbers. Pay attention to, before you make a move, before you cut a player, before you trade a player, pay attention to what the cap penalty would be for that player if you cut them, and account for that. Pay attention to how much money you're actually going to save for cutting that player, because in some cases it's going to tell you that you're not going to save anything. You're actually going to lose money. You're going to lose $4 million. You're going to lose $6 million for cutting this player. Then if that's the case, if you can't afford that, if that's going to hurt you long term, then don't make that move. You're just going to have to hold on to that player if that's the case. And then also have to keep into account that the salary cap does rise every year. Now, the number seems to be inconsistent. Sometimes it's like 4 million, sometimes it's like 6 million, sometimes it's 8 million. But the salary cap does rise each season that we advance. So that's something to keep in mind too, as far as salary cap is concerned. I
want to jump in.
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to let you
jump in real quick about the salary screen and the safe. So
yeah.
When you are identifying a trade asset and you say, okay, well, I want to put this person on the block, it's a couple things that you need to look at. You need to go to that salary screen. You need to look at, like you said, the penalty and the savings, and you need to identify some critical numbers of what you're seeing, right? So you could have a penalty that says 3.2 million, and then you could have savings that say 1.2 million, and you need to know how to do the math to find out what the actual penalty is going to be. Or you could have a penalty that says 23.8 million and savings that are in the negative, and you need to know that all of that is going to be a hit to your cap.
Yeah, that negative savings is an immediate hit to your cap. That's not a down. Yeah, that's not down the road. That one hits right away.
I don't think everybody knew that when you see negative in the savings, that means you're immediately going to get hit with that plus whatever the cap penalty is. So when trading somebody or when cutting somebody, you are still on the line for that money. That'll be a cap hit to your cap, that you now have that money tied up and you can't spend it on either re-signs, free agents, or acquiring more assets. You just can't do it. Another thing you want to identify when you're trading players, you want to look at age, overall, and development. These are three critical things you want to look at when identifying trade assets. Age, overall, and development. You need to know what position group, what player this position group is in, and when that position group starts to regress, or if this person is a high development, low overall, or high overall, low development, what type of trade value can you put on that, and what asset can you get in return for that? Or if they're in a contract year, or if a player you're going to acquire is in a contract year, and then you're going to have to give up an asset to acquire this player, one, and still pay him.
Right.
And also, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Red Boy. Go ahead.
I'm done.
I was going to say, and one thing I want to say, you have to be mindful of who you're trading with. You if it's a person, like, I'm so against in-division trades. Like, I will not do an in-division trade. It would have to be like a great deal for me to do it. But whoever you like, for instance, Don offered me a trade for one of my players. If, let's say, Mike would have offered me the trade, right? The price wouldn't have been the same for Mike as it was for Don. You understand what I'm saying? Because, Mike is up and coming. Don is an established Super Bowl champion. So I'm not going to tax him the way I would tax Mike. You understand what I'm saying? Or somebody else.
Vice versa, yeah.
Because that shit happens to me all the time. Like, yeah, this player is not that good, but it's you. So I gotta, like, what, bro? Why do I have to pay more for the player?
I ain't gonna lie, I do be doing that too, man.
You got to. Like, you have to.
If I'm trading with you and then somebody like with a worse record, I'm gonna be like, look, man, I want this. I want a third instead of a fourth from you. Then I'd rather get a fourth from Red Bull.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be late.
Not just that, I may have to come across that problem later on down the line. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not gonna give that problem up for nothing. You know what I mean? So it's just what it is.
And Don, we saw that with Nick P and Don with that TJ Watt trade.
That's true. That's true. That TJ Watt trade ended up
wrecking that whole game against Nick P, bro.
That is a hell of a point.
Yeah. See what I'm saying? See? So it's it's one thing you gotta do. You gotta love building. Because when you're in a franchise, you have to understand it's for the long haul. This is not a couple seasons. It's the long haul. So you have to make sure you want to establish your team to be competitive for years to come. You know, and if you don't have that mindset, you dead in the water. You can trade all you want to, you can draft all you want to, but if you're not building that team to get better and better, ain't gonna be nothing you can do. Because Go ahead.
No, finish up.
While your team is staying at even kill on that same pace or getting worse, people's teams are getting better and better and better. You know what I mean? And one thing Train put me on to, he didn't put me on to it, but he just made me mindful of it again. The morale, when your team is winning, their morale goes up. So those players, they play much better. You know what I mean? So you just have to be mindful of all those things. Shout out to Train. Well, Train here. Matter of fact, Train, speak on it, brother. Speak on it. I forgot you was here.
Why you can't in football, man.
Hey, you wild. No, but it's just, when you look at the run you made, I can see. I'm looking at your team. I'm like, who are these guys? But then I remember you had that long winning streak. So with that winning streak, the morale is up, the overall's they're gonna play a lot better than they normally would had it been week one. And so people don't really notice that. But to go back to what y'all was saying about the trades and things like that, people gotta be realistic with their play style and how good you are. If you kind of middle of the pack, a little behind, you don't need to be trying to trade for big dogs and 27-year-olds, 26. You need to leave all them alone because all they're going to do is tear your cap space up and you're still not going to win. And all you did was give a top user a low draft pick. That's all you did. And so then you back in the same situation again the next year.
Train with the perfect segue into the next thing I was going to say. What's your thoughts on the acquisition of older players? Because age is very important.
It is.
Is it everything? No, because at the end of the day, if the player is good, the player is good. If the player fits what you want to do, then that's going to work for you, whether they're old or whether they're young. But again, we're in it for the long haul. We're in this generally for 7 seasons. God willing, and so what's your thoughts on acquiring older players? We can start with Kid.
Okay, so my age limit is 26.
Holy crap!
You over 26, you better be a superstar or better. That's the only reason I'm trading for you. That's the only reason. That's it. That's my rule. You over 26, send them to the sticks.
I like damn. You need to put that on the shirt, bro.
Over
26, send them to the sticks. That's dope.
We'll just expound on that though. Like, why? What stops you from acquiring a 27-year-old?
Once you turn 27, you need about, if you normal dev, you need about maybe 12,000 XP. And at that point, I'm thinking, there's no point. I could draft somebody in the 3rd round, and they'll need like 3,000 XP, and they'd be like 22, 21. I can build him up. By the time he get to his 3rd year, he gonna be just as good as the other guy. So I'm thinking, like, nah, you too old, man.
Yeah,
it's a young man's game.
Indeed.
As Vontae Davis would say. Go
now,
ahead.
I did make an exception with. I just traded for Zadarius Smith. He was 29. Now I did that to help my D line out because he was superstar. But he on the too, so I probably won't resign, to be honest.
Right, yeah, that's a veteran player with superstar abilities on the last year of his deal. That is in your case, an exception. It's a player who's going to help you on a run where we're in week 4 and you're 4-0 so far. So obviously you see bright, big goals in your future.
Mhm.
So you're you're adding a piece that's going to help you. Red Boy's got experience with that. In his last season, early in the season, he went on a nice little run, started acquiring some big name pieces who were older and had hefty contract prices to some of them. So some of their contract prices fit better than others. But if you want to speak on that, Chris, Red Boy.
Yeah, definitely.
Because
So
you got a lot of, to be honest, you caught a lot of flack for all the acquisitions that you made.
Yeah. I catch a lot of flack for any fucking thing I do.
Yeah.
Calm down.
I mean, but anyway.
Yeah, you was about to vent. You was about to pull
Yeah.
out the couch. You was about to pull out the couch.
Bring it back.
You was about to pull the couch.
We'll pull out the couch next week.
Hey, bro. No, but so that goes back to identifying your core, and it expands on it a little bit because by season 2, you've kind of built up players, and you see your team forming into not a final product, but moving towards what your image was when you selected that team and what you thought could happen and will happen. So I know for me, it'll take a couple minutes. Patrick Queen, when I saw that, I was developing him. Like a lot of people don't know, like you just see he's 23 and he's 99 overall, but when you record stats in the top 4, if you're in the top 4 of stat, rushing yards, receiving touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, passing touchdowns, interceptions, tackles, forced fumbles, deflections, whatever it is, you go up a dev trait. If you win, normally you do. Sometimes your game will glitch out and fuck you over, whatever. If you win awards, that is going to give you a bunch of XP. Pro Bowls going to give you a bunch of XP, and you may get dev traits. So I did a lot of that with my players, in particular Patrick Queen. His first year, he won Defensive Rookie of the Year, Best Linebacker, Defensive MVP, and he led the league in interceptions. So he got like 12 overall points. Same thing second season. He won Defensive Player of the Year, Best Linebacker, led the league in tackles and tackles for loss. He got like 12 XP points. So off of that, and I just use him as an example, but I was putting up similar stats with a lot of my players, and they were going up pretty fast. And I was like, hold on, my team is in win now mode. So I identified, okay, I'm a win now. I don't really need, the number one goal is to win the championship. I'm not really looking at building towards the future with these draft picks. Let me go ahead and go acquire talent for these draft picks that I can go ahead and win now. And how I identified those players were age, dev, overall. I'm going to go to teams that have older players, they have high devs, high overalls, but they have horrible contracts for these users. They have horrible contracts. So these users will be more willing to part ways with these guys that you just see a high overall and a high dev, and you're like, oh, he's good, but you don't see his shitty ass contract where he's making $18 million a year for the next 3 years.
Who's a good example of that?
A good example of that is Trey Flowers. I actually got the joint up now. So Trey Flowers, when I acquired him from Juice, he was on a 5-year deal.
Defensive end from the Lions, by the way.
Yeah. Lions. He was on a 5-year deal. He had 3 years left. And he was making around $17 million a year with, I don't remember what his penalty was, but it was pretty hefty. But a lot of people don't know this. When you trade and you take on an incoming player, you don't pay any of their bonus. The person who sent that player pays that bonus. So you automatically save money on this player that had a shitty contract. Now, he's still on the hook for $17.6 million in 2022 and $18 million in 2023. But when you look at, if you go to that salary screen and you look at the penalty versus savings, I don't have any penalty. If I want to cut Trey Flowers right now, I immediately gain $17.6 million in cap and $18 million the next year.
Message.
That's a gem right there. We said we were going to drop gems. That's a gem right there. You go and you get that player with that high overall. You got to spend for it. You got to pay for him. You got to send a second round pick, a first round pick, or a player that you know that you really don't want to part ways with. And you go, if you're in a win now situation and you don't play, you get that player's bonus. And if you need to get more cap room, you got to cut ties with that player. You get a immediately $15, $18, $20 million boost to your cap. And now you can go acquire more assets.
Another good example of that was you traded Mark Andrews for Will Fuller. And trading Mark Andrews is a big deal because, traditionally in our league, tight ends like that with speed are highly valued. And we saw what Mark Andrews did last year for our former Ravens owner, Millie Andretti. Yeah. So, obviously with him in your hands, we expected big things, and you're willing to part ways with him to acquire an outside threat more so than him.
So I identified that I was going to need firepower to go deep into the playoffs. Mark Andrews is a security blanket. He has speed. I think he's like 86, 87 speed at tight end. So he can stretch the field. He can definitely give me a option inside, outside, whatever. But I identified that Mark Andrews was great trade bait. He was on his rookie contract, so I wasn't going to have to pay a big hit to my cap for trading him. And I was going to acquire somebody who was on a 4-year deal already that I wasn't going to have to pay their bonus for. Now I feel it. Y'all see me all the time looking for a tight end. I'm looking for a tight end. I'm looking for a tight end. I feel that hit, but if I had to do it all over again, I would do the same thing because that now you got to identify your team and your core. That now takes the pressure off of Hollywood Brown. You can't just double Hollywood Brown because I got more speed all the way on the other side of the field. So if you double him, I can go over here to this backside, or if you play off, I can run the ball. So you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You kind of got to really put your whole team together, and that part of it, the identifying the contract and the trade and the core player, you have to put that all together to make a good decision for your team.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Well said. As far as we can kind of continue on salary cap navigation. Train, you had an interesting situation last year where basically your team was loaded everywhere except for one position. And some would say it's the most important position on the team, and that's the quarterback position. Can you explain why you never committed to paying a quarterback last year?
Well,
you just talking about last year with my Saints?
Yeah, right. You were the Saints owner last year, so of course you had Drew Brees for a hot cup of coffee, and then after that, you basically had a rotating a lazy Susan at quarterback for the most part.
Right. Well,
it's that reference.
I mean, a lot of that was just waiting. I was waiting on the draft for real. I was waiting to try to catch one in the draft. We just didn't have good QB drafts. We normally, you get that one where it's like maybe like six QBs come out. You can catch one late. We just didn't have one when I needed one, and so I just go back earlier with the pride thing. I did not want to part ways with any of my stars to get a QB. And so I looked at my style and said, well, even if I do get a QB, I'm still gonna be losing. So I might as well just keep my draft picks and hope to get another top player, which then eventually it worked out where I had, a good receiver, got a corner, and then, just ran into a situation where I just got lucky with the late contracts of people not wanting to pay their, 32-year-old QB who was still, pretty good. I had a lot of cap room, so I can sign them. I can give them that, that 11, 12 million they want, in free agency after the draft because I had a lot of young guys.
Right.
So that's the only reason why I did it. I was waiting on the draft, but I didn't want to part ways with any of my stars just for a developing QB that somebody else don't want.
And
I was like, nah.
Yeah, and see, a benefit to it was that because you're doing that, you're not, for one, paying a quarterback, say,
Right.
$30 million or
I could
20,
pay everybody else. I paid everybody else. Yeah.
Exactly. It gave you the room to be able to build a monstrous defense. You had ridiculous stud corners on both sides. You had ridiculous wide receivers, and you were able to pay those guys because you didn't have $30 to $40 million tied up in your quarterback. So it's an interesting route to go, and to finish out on this part, I guess something we could take away from basically everybody's 2 cents is be careful with trading for veteran players.
Yep.
Don't trade for them just because. Don't trade for them just because the overall and just because somebody put them on the trade block and just because you haven't done a trade in a while. Trade for them when they can actually help you make a run. If you're 1-4 in your first 5 games, or I don't know, it's 2-6 to a 2-6 right at the trade deadline, don't go acquire a 29-year-old safety because he's going to help you even though you're already 2-6 and basically staring a top 10 pick in the face. Don't go and trade your don't go and trade your pick for that player.
But on the other hand, if you have that 29-year-old strong safety and you are 2-6 and you see the trade deadline is coming up and somebody is willing to spend a second, third round pick, go ahead and get that off your team so you can now draft a player that can help the team for the future.
Yeah, that's something I've highly recommend. Oh my goodness, Melvin Gordon. Sorry, we always record while Sunday Night Football is on. We need to stop doing this.
But Chris, to your point though, sometimes people just jump out there. They just want a draft pick so bad. Look at their roster too. They may have a young guy or a guy in the, like 24, 25 who can help you where you may say, okay, I could have drafted somebody in the 3rd round, but if I get this guy, he'll help me now. I don't need to really just get another draft pick just because. Because if you botch a lot of drafts, why go in there and draft another 60 overall tight end?
Indeed.
When you could have just got a 74, 75 guy and maybe a late pick. So you got a player and a pick instead of just getting a high pick, and you knew you was gonna botch anyway because the drafts are so random. Get you another young guy instead of instead of just a high draft. Oh, I want this 2nd round. For what? You about to mess up anyway. So just get a young guy that you can put back on the field, and you'll be all right.
And
piggyback on
pick.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you go ahead, get.
But to piggyback off that, me and Red Boy actually did a trade like that in the first year. It was for your guard, Ben Breeson. He went to Michigan.
Ben Breeson, I needed a backup. I needed a quarterback when Lamar got hurt.
I did scouting, and I looked at all the linemen, and I realized, like, the position I was going to draft in, I was like, I'm not going to get a lineman, so I need someone young and someone I can just put in. Now I put him in. He's my starting right guard. He ranked like 83, but he's like 23, 24 years old.
He 83 overall right now?
Yeah. So once I did that, I realized like what Train was saying, like you trade for somebody young that's going to play and then you can build with. Because you got to look at the draft and all that.
I don't like.
He baffled you with that.
That's exactly what Train said. That's exactly what I did
overall, bro.
He baffled you with that.
I cannot, but dog, that guard, wasn't he like a 69 or like a 70?
Yeah, he was something like that. Yeah, the Ravens had just drafted him this year too, so he was like
he
a
was
21-year-old rookie.
a rookie or a first year player, and
Mhm.
I needed a backup quarterback, and then that was something. Oh, that's perfect, kid. That's perfect.
We're gonna get the team. We're gonna get the player development soon. Just to touch on that, but go ahead.
Okay,
Definitely was about to ask about that.
Cap. I got the trade was Ben Bredeson and a fifth for Colin Kaepernick. Now, kid got a guard that was 69 overall or whatever it was. He ended up progressing them to 83 overall. He also got a late round pick, and a lot of guys don't know this. When you sign a free agent out of the free agent pool, there is no bonus money guaranteed. You are not on the line for any bonus. It's all savings. So it didn't cost him shit to get a 5th round pick and a
Good players, right?
That's a hell of a move right there.
Move, dog.
Yeah.
That's a great move.
That is a hell of a move. Look at that. I think another part of trading that people underrate and undervalue is the player for player trade. Why aren't there enough player for player trades? Why aren't more player for player trades happening? Does it again go back to pride?
Train.
I think a lot of the player to player trades is just come with the development as well, though. You know, you don't want to. Some people really feel as they might be losing just because, like early, the overall and this and that. No, if you can move on from somebody that you're not using that well, and you can get somebody else that can help you now, do it. Don't worry about what somebody else saying. Just go ahead and do it, because you gonna be straight. You're gonna be straight. Like y'all just did, player for player with a late round pick, and it worked out for both. Both needs were met, and you were straight.
Yeah. Yep.
There are people that come to mind when I think of people who hold on to players that they don't use, that just sit on their bench and do nothing. But I'm not gonna call any of those people out, because that is
you having Hall of Fame caliber players riding the pine, you know.
We are not here to call people out. We're here to help people. So I'm not going to say any names.
You gotta unleash your youngins. You gotta unleash your youngins.
Yes.
You gotta give them some burn. You have to, because you never know. And that old ass vet, he's not getting any better. He's just staying right where he's going to be at. And it's not going to help you. It's not going to help you. Let your young folks eat. And that's the problem I used to have. But I broke out of that this year, and it's working. It's working for me. It's working.
And even if you're not, even if you just prefer the player that you already have starting, and you don't really have room to use this young guy, this young player, whatever the position is, just, if somebody asks for them, at least go ahead and entertain getting something back for the player. If you're not using them, what's the point of letting them just sit there and rot? Because you don't want somebody else to benefit, because you don't want somebody else to show you, oh, this is how you use that play. Don't
be a bitch. Just go ahead and say it. I'm not going to let him have it. He's not going to do good with him, because I can't do good with him. But it can help my team if I trade him. No, I'm not going to give him to him.
No, help yourself by getting something back for that player. Whether it's, again, it could be a player for player trade, it could be a player for a pick trade, and then maybe you take that pick and you go acquire, go trade that pick for a position where you need help at. You don't have to. you gotta learn. People will need to learn how to use trades to move into other trades and to move into other parts of developing their team.
Indeed.
You don't have to just stop at, oh, okay, I traded that player, I got this 5th round or 4th round pick, and then boom, just keep the 4th. You don't have to keep the 4th round pick. Go trade that 4th round pick for something else now.
Yeah. You know how many people asking for picks? It'd be somebody waiting to try to draft somebody in the 5th round. They be like, anybody, don't want their picks, you don't want your picks, go ahead and trade them and load them for next year.
Absolutely.
You may give your 2 5ths away for next year's 4th. It don't have to be a fifth or fifth. No, you want my fifth, then give me your fourth next year. If not, then don't worry about it. So then next year you might have to, especially if you have anybody on your board or anything like that. I just don't understand the people that don't make the draft and don't trade their late round picks. Yeah. I don't understand that.
Yeah, that's free. It's free trades, basically.
Right, free trade. Right, you're not gonna make it. Go trade it.
Yeah. True shit.
Speaking of the draft, let's dive into the draft, and then after the draft, we'll dive into player development. So, when it comes to the draft, I guess there's a few things. So throughout the season, and again, maybe there's people that don't know this, but throughout the season, there are storylines that each draft generates.
We get that shit.
Well, because I mean, overall, I mean, most people should know that, but there is a small population of folks who just turn the PlayStation on and send the invite. We've had this, we came up with the term load up mentality way back on one of our first few episodes, the load up mentality. And I think most people have gotten past the load up mentality since, we came up with that term. But again, just to generalize in case people don't know, every season, I believe it starts at week 3, which is when scouting opens. Mm-hmm. If you scroll over to I think it's the second to the last tab in the main franchise menu, and you go to news stories. You click on news stories, and then you can click a little drop down that brings you to draft stories. And each week, just about each week, there's a new story on a player or 2 or 3 that are going to be in the upcoming draft class, which are available to scout. Some of those stories are negative, where they'll say, this cornerback got toasted by the number 1 receiver for 300 yards, and scouts say he's going to be terrible. There are going to be positive ones where this wide receiver toasted the number 1 cornerback in the nation for 300 yards, and he's going to be the best wide receiver of all time. Those kind of stories and stuff like that, they're there for a reason. They're there to give you hints. They're there to give you hints and gems of, what players are going to be good. And some of those players are bona fide first round picks. Some of those players are going to be 4th round picks. Some of them are going to be 5th or 6th round picks. There's stories all over throughout the draft that kind of give you hints and tell you about those players. And then, of course, there's the actual scouting. I guess everybody has their own tips on how to go about scouting. I know for me, those scouting points every week, I usually start with the positions that I know I'm going to be looking for in the draft first.
Absolutely, as you should.
Most of the time, it ends up being cornerback by default, just because cornerback is one of the most overvalued positions in CGI. It always has been. Everybody's always thirsty for a cornerback, and I'm one of them. So typically, I'll go through and I'll scout every single cornerback that has a round grade on them. I won't scout the undrafted ones until later in the season when I have some spare scouting points. And then I'll just go position by position of the positions that I'm planning on drafting. Me for example, I don't right now I don't need a quarterback. Right now I don't need a running back. Right now I don't need a tight end. Right now I don't need a defensive end. So I'm not going to scout any of those positions. I'm not going to prioritize scouting any of those positions anytime soon. I'm not going to scout middle linebacker. I don't need a middle linebacker. I'm going to prioritize the positions where I think, okay, eventually I'm going to need depth here, or eventually I'm going to need a new starter there. That's how I go about using my scouting points. And then once I've scouted all the positions that I feel I'm going to need to address in the draft, I'll have extra scouting points to spend on luxury positions. Say, I can luxury draft another defensive end. I can maybe luxury draft another middle linebacker or something like that. But I'm not gonna waste scouting points on positions that I don't need immediately. How about y'all? How do y'all go about using the scouting points? We can start with let's start with Wakanda. We ain't heard from you in a while.
Well, the reason why y'all haven't heard from me is because I'm literally drafting right now.
Well, look at that.
See, I'm literally. So say your question again, D.
Just say, just like, how do you go about using your scouting points, and what do you prioritize when you're scouting?
D-line and corner. And I don't really start scouting for wide receivers until probably like the end of the year. But I'm always trying to build my D-line and my cornerbacks and safeties. And the reason being is because CGI is pass happy. You know what I mean? So you want to make sure you can get some young corners out there that you can have on cheap contracts and get them for the long call and build them up. Another thing that I've been starting to do, and I noticed, I'm not paying offensive linemen no more. I can draft me a solid offensive lineman. You just heard what Kid just said. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, that's crazy. But I understand the logic now. If it's not somebody like Quentin Nelson, Zach Martin, or, you know, the studs, the elite studs, I'm going to let them walk. And I'm going to start scouting the offensive linemen as well. Now, you can find a ton of offensive linemen in the draft. Their rating may not be good, but if you look at certain attributes, and Red Boy put us on to that, look at certain attributes, you can be like, all right, I can work with that and go from there. Yeah. So D-line, corner, safeties, and then towards the end of the year, I start looking at wide receivers.
Go ahead, Chris.
So how I scout is, like you said, I look at my position of need, and I scout that whole position group. I scout that whole position first,
from start to finish. First round to seventh round.
First round, seventh round. That's what I do because, man, a lot of times, man, you'll get. It's happened to me so many times that I can't even count, man. I'll be about to draft a player. I see him on my board. I like, he's on my board. I saw his combine numbers. I fell in love with this dude. He had a storyline to him, all that. And he get picked like 3 picks before I pick him.
Yeah. That's how I did.
We've all had that heartbreak.
That's how I did.
And that should be blowing me. So it's like, I'll scout that whole position group, and then how I'll use the rest of my scouting points. All right. So yeah, it may be a blue chip prospect. You see this guy is a top 10 rated overall guy. But you know, number one, you don't need that position. And number two, for me, I'm usually not going to draft in the top 10. So I'm not spending no scouting points on that dude. He's going to be gone anyway. Why am I going to be scouting points on that dude? Okay. So then I'll go to like the lower rounds and stuff like that. And I'll see, all right, well, I'm going to need this position to have depth in like 2 seasons. So I'm going to draft this person right here, and I'm going to build them up. And by the time this veteran is on this contract that's going to expire and I'm not going to re-sign, I'm going to go ahead and have his backup ready or his replacement ready by that time. And that's how I use my scouting points, because you're not going to be able to draft every guy with a first-round grade or every guy with a second-round grade. You got to see what your team's needs are and then draft some of the scout some of the lower tier guys. And it's even better once the combine numbers hit, because you kind of like gauge what the attributes going to be and how that's going to fit into your image of your team you're going to build.
Kid, you sounded surprised on some of those. How do you go about scouting?
So I go about scouting. First thing first, the storylines. Storylines, I put them on my draft board, but I don't scout them because probably about 80% of the time they're going to have a development trait. So that just gets it out the way. Then once I go into that, if I got a 95 strong safety, I'm not scouting that position. He like 24, I'm not scouting that position at all. Then once I go into that, I go into what I need. So if I need a quarterback, I'm scouting all quarterbacks. Then after that, I go into what position do I need after 2 years? So it may be somebody coming up for a contract. I'm not going to sign them. So I'm going to scout that position that they play. So if I do draft them, they can just plug in and they can just rotate on the field between the veteran and the rookie. Then I really don't scout linemen till the combine numbers come, actually.
I'm the same way. I don't waste any scouting points on offensive linemen until the combine numbers drop.
Exactly.
You can explain why if you want to.
Damn.
I just don't believe linemen are good in Madden. to be honest. So like they're like the most least valued position because it's like, we all know why. But yeah, that's basically pretty much it. That's how I go scouting. And then when I do scout them, I look at like if I got a power rusher at like left outside linebacker and his power moves are A-, he's going to the top of my draft board because of the scheme and the attribute that he has fits the scheme.
Mm-hmm. There you go, setting us up for our next topic.
Yeah, so if I have an A- power rusher, he's going to the top board because most likely he's going to be the most valuable person that I draft.
Okay.
I want to touch on the not scouting or not drafting old linemen and like waiting till the combine numbers come out. Madden do generate some ass-tastic old linemen, dog.
Well, I think what part of it is that ever since I want to say if it wasn't Madden 19, it was Madden 20 when they introduced separating offensive linemen's pass block finesse and pass block run move from the actual pass block rating. And same thing for run block finesse, run block power, run block, the run block rating itself. Whenever Madden it was that they separated that, I feel like because of that, that's what's caused offensive linemen in these drafts to not be as good because they're not giving them enough balance in all of those ratings. It seems like a lot of the times, outside of maybe like 2 or 3, maybe 4 total prospects in each draft, the rest of the linemen are going to be average at one thing and really bad at the other thing. There's like no in between. They're going to have like 70 something run block finesse, 70 something pass block finesse, 50 something pass block power, 50 something run block power. It's too much of a drastic drop off with the way Madden created offensive linemen ever since they separated those ratings. So that's part of the reason why I don't waste scouting points on offensive linemen early on, because I at least want to see their combine numbers and see if their speed and their strength and things of that nature, their physicals. I want to see if that stuff looks good first before I spend any scouting points on an offensive lineman.
Also, a reason to your point about the offensive lineman, the reason why the first thing I look at in team selection is offensive lineman is because, like we talk about with the stats and the dev upgrades at the end of the year, O linemen don't get dev upgrades. Whatever
great point.
They are, they're going to be that way for the duration of the cycle.
That is a great point. The only way to get any kind of dev upgrade for them is by winning a primetime game of the week, which you only get one a season. You're only guaranteed one a season. Some people are lucky enough to get 2, sometimes maybe even 3, but it's not very many opportunities other than that to get offensive linemen leveled up. And then you have to even think that some people aren't going to want to waste use their primetime upgrade on an offensive lineman because you might have another position that you might value a lot higher than offensive lineman. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so it's tough. It's tough with offensive linemen. That's why it's really tough to. And I mean, you see it in our drafts. The good ones go early for the most part. Sometimes, occasionally, you'll find some gems in what we call the black market, which is free agency after the draft. You'll find a 60 overall star dev lineman that he'll eventually be something for you, maybe in 2 seasons or so. But it's tough with offensive linemen. Train, you got any tips before we move on to the next? Move on to the next topic.
Nah, man, I think y'all covered it all.
Yeah. Well,
hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
Before that, so for the owners, if you're an owner, this is another gem.
Ooh.
If you're an owner, have your scout as a DB. That when they ask you like what their specific area they scout, you want it to be DB, O-line, or linebacker, because that's multiple positions where you can get easy scouting points.
See,
I don't know if y'all noticed, but like if you have like a DB that has their scout, that's their specific, like their best trait, they get like 11 points and then like 5 and then 3 or something like that.
Yeah. So I've never been an owner in an off season before. Usually the only time I ever go owner is if I want to move a team or build a new stadium or something like that. And then I usually, once the process is done of moving the team or building the stadium, I usually switch back to a coach because I don't like doing a lot of the owner stuff. But like you said, one of the benefits of being an owner is that you do get to choose your staff, and with that you get to choose who your scout specializes in. When you're a coach, you don't get to choose that. So your owner randomly assigns, whatever scout. So usually everybody has at least one position that they get the decreased scouting points at. And I believe the scale is 11 points for the first attribute, 7 points for the second attribute, and 3 points for the last attribute. Whereas normally it's 15 points, 10 points, 5 points. So that is a good tip, but I don't know how many people are owners as opposed to coaches. I would imagine there's more coaches than owners, but those of you that are owners should definitely take advantage of that. That's a pretty good tip. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Good shit.
Yeah. I just learned something. Shit.
Yeah, no bullshit. No bullshit.
All right. So let's move past the draft, because I mean, obviously, then you go into the draft. If you're lucky enough to attend the draft, which most people do for the most part, you're picking your players. Some people are making trades during the draft, blah, blah, blah. Once you have your players, let's talk about developing them. For one, I think one of the most overrated things is people seeing a low overall on a rookie that they just drafted and overseeing the value of their attributes beyond their overall. Especially now, again, in these last two Maddens, they stretched out the rating scale to where, there's not going to be as many high 70s in these drafts as they used to be, like we were in Madden 18, Madden 19, Madden 17 even. You're not going to see a lot of those high 70s or even low 80s that we used to get in these drafts. But that doesn't mean that the player sucks. That player may be you drafted a first round pick that was a 69 overall. It doesn't mean he sucks. You have to analyze his attributes and see, what makes that player what they're going to be. And whether that's speed, whether that's acceleration, whether it's their strength, whether it's their jumping, whether it's their pass rush moves. They have their traits and things of that sort that you can look into, especially if you get a player with a low overall that comes with like a shit ton of traits. That's extremely valuable. The quarterback I drafted, for example, he was mid 60s overall, but he came with ideal sense pressure. We have people who have quarterbacks who would kill to get ideal sense pressure on their quarterback.
Can you, not to cut you off, can you tell them what ideal sense of pressure is?
Oh yeah, sure. So of course, we do trait weeks 4 times a season, and that's an opportunity to be able to upgrade player traits on players. And one of the player traits on quarterbacks is their ability to sense pressure and how they handle it. These last few Maddens, pressure, when quarterbacks feel pressure, they make worse throws, obviously. And I think is it 4 or 5 different?
It's paranoid, it's trigger happy, it's
oblivious, average, and
ideal. Yeah, so it's 5 of them.
Yeah, so ideal sense pressure. If you have ideal sense pressure, it's basically the best one. Any of the top tier quarterbacks are going to have that. And basically what that means is, if they do sense pressure, it's not really going to affect their throw. And the quality of their throw. It's not, they're rarely going to get, inaccurate passes based off of the pressure generating near them. Whereas let's say you have somebody who has trigger happy sense pressure or has oblivious sense pressure, they're going to be really antsy and throw the ball worse and not as accurate and make it Josh Allen.
Yeah.
When just the presence of defensive linemen being around the quarterback at all is going to make their throws not as good. So yeah, when you have that it's tough because there's no way to upgrade it aside from through trait weeks or through our off-season training camp program. Other than that, you can't spend XP on it. They don't eventually earn it or anything of that sort.
So if you're not in CGI, you don't get that upgrade.
Ooh, boom, boom, boom. Shots to the other leagues. Boom,
Okay.
boom, boom,
Okay.
boom. You can do that in G6 too. Come on.
Nobody takes advantage of that stuff. Nobody takes advantage of it. Even when I put the announcements on, they don't.
Dang, that's a shame. I put mine up at like 4 a.m. last night. I was like, I'm getting my +1.
Yeah, like that stuff, it matters. They think it don't, but it does.
It does.
Every little
absolutely.
bit counts when you're building your team.
Yeah, so that's why trait weeks are very important, because you can up things like that, as well as other various things on various players at various positions. But yeah, so let's talk about taking a young player that you just drafted and what you got to do to get the most out of them. We can go round table. I don't know who wants to start. Whoever wants to start, that's cool.
When drafting the player, yeah, okay. So
just like start from what's your first plan is. Say you drafted a first round rookie, you're excited about him. What are you gonna do to get the most out of him and get his overall as high as you can possibly get it?
All right, cool. I draft a first round. Let's say I draft the first round running back. Okay, so now I'm gonna make him focus. I actually drafted one in the 4th round this year, and
he a beast. And he a beast.
He's gonna be a beast. He's gonna be a beast. No question. So I'll use him for example. I obviously gave away a lot of my assets. My first pick of this draft was in the 4th round, and I drafted. I looked at I like power backs. This is I identified with my type of player. I like power backs, and I saw that this guy ran a 4.4. So I said, okay, this is a power back that's going to be, at least 89 or 90 speed. He ended up being 90 speed. And the first thing I do is when we get to preseason, when we get to all-season training camps, I'm going to give him one of those training camps. I'm immediately going to give him one of them training camps. Then when we get to preseason advances, I'm going to do all training exercises that have to do with the skill set running back, and I'm going to make him a focus player in the preseason.
Skirt. Let's stop right there. those training programs. So, again, we're not here to call anybody out, so we're not going to do that. But let's just talk about the importance of those training programs. Those weekly trainings. So every week it pops up on your front page. It's literally impossible to miss it. The tab that says start weekly training, correct?
Right.
Yes.
All right. So each it gives you an offensive option and then a defensive option. And there's several different drills that you can do that involve 2 position groups per drill. Correct. You can only actually do 1 per week, but once you do one, and say you get, because I think you grade it once you do the drill, you either grade as a bronze, silver, or gold medal for that drill. Correct. If you get the gold medal for that drill, that means you're going to get the maximum amount of XP from doing that drill each week. Once you get the gold medal for the drill, you don't have to do the drill anymore. That gold medal saves, and you can now sim that drill every week that you want to actually do the drill for that position group. Yeah. So say, for example, me, I did like the quarterback wide receiver drill that's, I don't know, it's like medium dagger or something like that, medium pass dagger routes. I'm working on my quarterback and I'm working on my wide receivers. So I sim that drill every week because I maximized it and got gold on that drill. Defensively, right now I'm working on my D-line and my linebackers. So I did the run stopper drill. It's like the gap assignment drill or whatever. I did that drill, maxed it out gold, and I sim that every week. I literally don't have to do trainings anymore because the 2 trainings that I want to do are already gold, and all I have to do is just sim it every week. Then from there, they give you the option of 3 focus players. Those focus players get an additional amount of XP on top of what they get from the drills. And those focus players, everybody might do it differently, but you can rotate them. You can keep them. You keep them the same every week. But that additional XP is valuable. It may only say 450 or 525, whatever it is. That XP is valuable. Every
Yeah.
little bit of XP that you get is valuable.
Absolutely.
So I break it down to this. For the running, I'm going back to the player I drafted and how I'm going to progress him.
Right.
For that running back, I'm gonna do a running drill, and then I'm gonna also go over and see whatever his archetype is and where that little purple indicator is. I'm gonna go to coach scheme, and I'm gonna change my scheme up to match whatever that is. So now that purple shows up on that player, and I get an additional like 300 or 400 XP every time I do a training, on top of his position group, which gives him like 1,200, on top of him being a focus player, which gives him like 400, 500, 600 XP. So if you break that down, that's like almost 2,000 XP, and I didn't even play the game yet.
Yeah.
So if that's a rookie, even if he's a normal dev, you know what I'm saying? It takes like 3,000-4,000 for a rookie to go up a skill point. So you could essentially, what I do, I do this. I literally do this. When I have a rookie like that and I focus him, I did it with Patrick Crane. I do it all the time. They go up 1 overall point every week. Every single week they go up 1 overall point.
It's very, very possible. Yeah.
It is possible, dog. And you could take a 72 overall player. It's 16 weeks. Do the math. What will that 72 overall player be by the end of the season?
Indeed, yo.
Yeah, and it's even easier if that player has a star development trait or a superstar development trait.
Superstar, yeah.
It's even easier if they have a hidden development trait. If you get a rookie whose development trait is hidden off the break, it costs even like less XP. Yeah, it costs even less XP. They go up as if they're a superstar player. So you definitely have to take advantage of that. Real quick, you touched on the scheme. Again, maybe some people don't know how important this is, but you'll notice on your players' player cards they have like a little purple puzzle piece next to their player name or whatever. That purple puzzle piece is what indicates that your player is fitting in the scheme. If you have a player that you're developing and they're not currently fitting in your scheme, then you need to adjust the scheme to fit the player. Then, if you're trying to maximize that player. That's it. That's just to kind of clean up what you were trying to explain.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, with the big part. Oh yeah, with the training too. If they're a starter, they get an extra additional 400 XP.
Ooh, that's a good tip. That is very true. Starters get more XP than the backups do. So
yeah.
So please, this is a message. If you have a fucking, excuse my language, 29-year-old fucking player, don't start him, bro. Just put somebody younger in so they can get the XP and the 29-year-old won't, because getting 32,000 XP is going to take damn near 4 weeks. So starting him, to be honest.
It's also not necessarily. I want to say it's not also depth chart dependent, because say for example, I have 2 left outside linebackers, but one of the left outside linebackers I started right outside linebacker, but because they're both at left outside linebacker, one of them doesn't get the maximum XP amount. Does that sound right to y'all? Maybe I'm saying that wrong.
What's your scheme though?
They're both supposed to be run stoppers in scheme, and they are, but I'm trying to wean one of them to be the right outside linebacker scheme, which is pass coverage.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, when I sim the drills for linebackers, the one that's actually starting at left outside linebacker, he gets the maximum like starter XP. The one that's starting at right outside linebacker, he doesn't, even though he's listed as a left outside linebacker. So yeah, I think we're probably confusing people with that, but yeah, that's a thing.
I know.
Regardless, if you have your players in scheme, they're going to get maximum XP, and if you have them starting, that increases their potentially get maximum XP.
And if you have them as a focus player, they get even more XP. And if you cook with them on the field and get stats according to your goals, all right, Dan, we got to talk about the goals too.
So I kind of forgot about that.
So if you go to a player and you go to their card and you highlight, and the first thing that comes up is goals, and you'll see, all right, well, you can get 4,000 passing yards, 5,000 passing yards, 1,500 rushing yards, 1,200 rushing yards, or whatever. It has an XP reward attached to it. So if if you the more stats you put up with this player, the more you ball out with this player, that's even more XP. On top of you being a focus player, on top of that player being a starter, on top of that player having that purple puzzle piece for the scheme, on top of you picking a training that's going to identify his position group. That all goes in the player building. Goes as well. That's all I want to say.
Wow, yeah, I kind of forgot about the goals a little bit. That's a nice little gem too, because that is additional chances at XP to get, and they still give you weekly goals too, right? It's weekly goals and season long goals.
Yeah,
right. Okay, that's pretty
because
good
if
tip there.
you can look and you can see, all right, well, if I got this rookie and it costs $3,000 or 3,000 XP per skill point to go up, and you look and you say, all right, well, if I win Rookie of the Year with him, it says 15,000 XP. If I win best running back with him, it says another 15,000 XP. If I make the Pro Bowl with him, it says another 15,000 XP. Oh, if I win Super Bowl MVP, it says another 15,000 XP. If I get the season rushing title, it says another 3,000. You know what I'm saying? Like
right.
it just
it adds up. It adds up. It does.
Also, another gem with the weekly training. If you do a certain scheme, like on offense or defense, so let's say if you do outside zone and like cover 3, I don't know if y'all noticed, but you get it's like a 2-point attribute boost whenever you call that play in game for that week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you do cover 3 drills, your players are going to play better anytime that you call cover 3. Some would debate if that actually works, but whatever.
Nah. So to piggyback off what Red Boy was saying, in G6, I had Jonathan Taylor. In one season, Jonathan Taylor went from a 75, and I think we're only in our second season of G6. He's a 98 in one season. That's how much he grew as a running back.
I believe it.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Well, Patrick McQueen. I mean, kid with his offensive lineman.
Bo Jackson.
Yeah, him too. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where it's like you got to know your scheme. You got to know your scheme. Focus on that and build the players' position. Do y'all build the players' positions? I do that. Like one season, I will focus on my corners. One season, I may focus on my linebackers. Or like, do y'all do that?
For the most part, yeah. Sometimes I'll wean off if, say, like a certain position group or a certain couple of players are close to getting a skill point. I may, like say for example, right now I'm working on defensive line and linebackers position group. But if one of my corners is getting close to getting a skill point, I may spend that week doing a DB drill, a drill that involves DBs. Same thing with focus players. Generally, my focus players are going to involve, 3 young players that I'm working on developing, particularly my quarterback. And, particularly my quarterback usually stays in focus player. But my other 2 spots, I'll rotate between people who are getting close to getting an XP, to getting a skill point. So if this week Fred Warner is like, if Fred Warner is 1,000 points away from getting his next skill point, I'll put him as a focus player just to help get him that extra XP towards getting that skill point.
Got you.
I really want to illuminate this thing about the stats and the as far as it goes, team building and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Along with everything you're going to do with the trainings and stuff like that, and the XP you get weekly before even playing a game, I just added it up. And, I know Kid knows this. I know Wakanda knows. I know all of y'all already know this. But if I lead the league in rushing, if I lead the league in rushing touchdowns, if I win best running back, Rookie of the Year, MVP, and go to a Pro Bowl, I'll have 108,000 XP. That's 20 points. That's 20 over.
Oh my
Indeed.
God.
Indeed. Indeed.
That is insane. Those are goals that I will never ever meet. But
Right.
Jeez.
I'm gonna leave that up to y'all. I see y'all do it.
me and Train are like, we'll just leave that to y'all. But it's all good. Wow. Well, yeah, that's a hell of a lot of XP. I think the main thing though is with these young players is the trainings for one. Obviously, are very important. If you're not maximizing your trainings, if you're simming bronze trainings or silver trainings, you're wasting your time. Don't
Why
sim
the
a
fuck
bronze.
would you ever do that? Why
Right.
would you do that? Why the
Amen.
fuck would you do that, dog? Like,
Amen.
Maybe they don't
You're not-
know. Like some of them don't even do the trainings, bruh.
Right, and
I mean, I've
believe
looked at people's streams and they about to send. They start the stream before they send an invite, and I look and that joint says start weekly training, or like you'll look and that joint says 350 scouting points. Like, what are you doing, bruh?
and you can't, like, once you play your game, you can't do the training anymore. The training is considered done once you've played your game. So you have to do your weekly training before you play your game.
Yeah, it's gonna pick a random skill training to do, and it's gonna give you bronze. You know what I'm saying? So that junk could be like kick block or something. You know what I'm saying? And now, yeah, you did. I think it's like DB and D lineman, but you only got like 300 XP per player, and that joint is only going to give you a boost to that play when you're on special teams. How often are you going to be on special teams throughout the duration?
Right.
But even more key is just realizing what position group you need to be working on. If you just drafted a rookie quarterback, there's no reason that you should be doing drills that do not involve your quarterback.
At all times.
You just drafted a rookie quarterback and you're starting that rookie quarterback every week. The only way he's getting better is by you doing drills with him every week. Otherwise, he's going to stay at 82 overall or whatever overall he is, unless you're getting actual XP through games, which you can, but it's never going to equal the amount of XP that you get through simming drills or doing drills, maximizing drills.
And the goal is to try to get your young players to get to the at least superstar, so you can get some type of ability on that player. You know what I mean? Because the abilities, they help a lot when you are in this game, tremendously. So that's the goal. Your goal is to make your team younger. You know what I mean? Find your core, and just make sure your team constantly is getting younger and younger. That's what you do.
Well said. Well,
yeah. And
let them go. Let the old heads go. Let them go. It's all good. Try to trade the old heads to championship teams. Yeah, man. Yeah, and to everybody listening in CGI, I've made that mistake. I've made that mistake on numerous occasions. You know what I mean? But let them go. I promise you're going to be fine. If you're scouting correctly, if you're scouting throughout the entire season using those scouting points to scout the positions and things of that nature, you're going to be just fine. Fine. Yeah. The people who be drafting those duds be the people who don't be scouting.
Right.
Well, let's just one more thing.
Yeah,
can we give an example about somebody re-signing an older player because they don't want to, you know what I'm saying, they want to hang on to the guy, and maybe that guy's a superstar X Factor or a superstar. He's maybe like 31 years old, something like that, and then you still signed them.
Go for it.
And what are the detriments? What can happen when you do that?
Mm-hmm. You're young. You say, for instance, I should have let Chandler Jones go last season. I should let him go last season because I knew he was getting ready to leave, and I drafted a young boy who should have been getting burned, but he wasn't because I was being stubborn with Chandler Jones. So that pretty much that young boy right now, he's going to be a waste because I'm not using him this year. Well, I've rotated him in every now and then this year, but I'm still being stubborn with Chandler Jones. But that young linebacker has just now been wasted, and I could have been building him up, doing drills with him and things of that nature to get him to a place where he could have been a solid linebacker for the next 4 or 5 years on a cheap contract doing work for me. But because I held on to Chandler Jones, because I'm looking at the attributes, I'm looking at the abilities, I just hindered my linebacker when I could have just let Chandler Jones go. BK or Nick P would have picked him up for the bread, and we would have they would have spent all it. They would have spent all their bread on him, And I would have had a young stud on the cheap contract, getting better and better and better every season, and it would have worked out for me.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's definitely a good example too. So one of the things I want players to recognize is the thresholds that you get abilities at. You know what I'm saying? It's a certain overall that you have to achieve to get an ability. I think it's like 75 and 80 or 80 and 85, something like that. So if you re-sign that guy that's 31 years old or 32 years old, you sign him to like a 3-4 year deal. Now you on hook because you just gave him some money and you can't trade him, you can't cut him because he'll end up putting your cap in a negative or putting you in a position to where you can't make no other moves and you crippled as a GM. But you signed him because he had abilities and he had zone abilities and he had superstar abilities. But he just regressed. So now he regressed underneath a threshold where now he has one ability. You know what I'm saying? And the next season he regressed again because he was like, all he got is one ability. I ain't even using him. I ain't gonna put him on stat. He regressed again. Now he has no abilities. He's a superstar player with no abilities that you have to pay for another 2 years.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is an example of that. He's he obviously is an older quarterback, and now, as he gets older and his overall drops and his throw power drops, his amount of abilities drops too. He started off with 5 abilities and an X factor. Now I believe he's down to, he still has his X factor, but he's down to 3 abilities as opposed to 5 abilities. So that's an example there.
Gotta go.
Kids like this. I mean, he way over my age limit anyway. So.
What do you say? 26 or send them to the sticks?
Send 26. Send them to the sticks.
I feel like that's something Train would say. Train should have came up with that.
Nah.
All right. So just to finish off on developing players, to recap. Do your weekly trainings, maximize them by getting gold medals on them, and then sim them every week. You don't have to play the trainings every week. You just have to get the gold on the training once.
Yep.
You get the gold on the training once, sim it every week after that. As long as you got gold on it, you're doing it right. Set your focus players to players that you want to get better. Prioritize who the players are that you want to get better. They can be older players, sure, but it's best that you prioritize younger players. And then get players to fit inside your scheme. Again, to get to your schemes stuff, you need to go to the coaching tab and then click schemes. And then you scroll through your offensive and defensive scheme to set up your players to best fit your scheme. You'll know that your players are in the scheme if you got a high percentage on the scheme tab. And if the players that you want to develop have the purple puzzle piece next on their player card. That's how you know that your players are in scheme.
Don't prioritize older players. Do all young. I recommend do all young.
Yeah. And that includes playing the younger players. The younger players need to play because the more
you have to.
Yes.
More play time they get, the more XP they get. They get XP just for being for getting snaps on the field. You let a player get 30 to 50 snaps in a game, and they're getting XP for their presence of being on the field. Basically, they're getting XP from reaching team goals and things like that each game. So. Take advantage of these younger players that you have. The only other point, I don't know, was there anything that we missed here that you wanted to touch on, Red Boy, Train Kid, Wakanda, anything else?
I think we nailed everything.
Here, 1 second. Just want to make sure.
Well, I know I want to say one thing. The one of the most important signings you can make is the first free agency after the team selection.
Ooh.
When we go that first off season, because
talk about it.
Times where the players, the real life players that they put in the free agency that you could find, and then that first year you can sign them to like a 7-year contract, something cheap, and build them more so than them already coming in, you drafting them and then paying a lot of money. Like, been a couple times I've developed a player from just that first draft of just getting a young
Yeah.
guy. A lot of people like to go for it. They win now, they'll go out and get, somebody can help them day one. But I normally go out and get somebody that I'm looking for like season 4. Because I'm going to sign him to 7 years. I'm looking like, see, different attributes. Season 4, he going to be all right. He going to be starting and on his year contract not making any money.
That is,
My thing,
I did
my
that.
thing is,
Go ahead. What'd you say, Red Boy?
I said no. I did that with Tyree Jackson and wrote another league.
Good example.
User Jeff. I don't know what his PSN is, but he has a couple leagues. I'm in one of them. And I signed Tyree Jackson as a free agent season 1, and I signed him to like a 7-year, $5 million deal. And I got him up to a superstar now. It's like season 3, and he's almost an 80 overall.
Right, and he's not gonna make the money that your other 80 overall, 80 to mid 80 overall quarterbacks are gonna make in their third or fourth year once they're off their rookie contract. He's already locked up, so you don't have to spend $20 to $30 million at that position. That's perfect. Yeah.
He's costing me less than $1 million a year.
That's
right.
My God, that's beautiful. Imagine a superstar quarterback making that little money.
My thing is, you got to value your draft picks. When you draft somebody, they're automatically getting a 4-year deal, and it's super, super cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do that, it's better than to trading for a player that's maybe 85 overall, and you got to sign him. He's already on like a 4-year deal, and he's making $20 million a year almost. It's much more valuable to draft somebody. They're on a 4-year deal. You build them up. They can be 21 years old. They can be around like 68. By the time they get in their 3rd year, based upon scheme and weekly training and all that, you can probably get them to like at least 82. Just value your draft picks. They are very valuable.
All right, cool.
And you've been saying that since day one, kid.
Yes.
Since day one.
Hey, kid, was that one of the reasons that you picked the Jags because of the Jalen Ramsey trade, and you knew that they would have like multiple first-round picks?
Cash space. I knew I would have to re-sign Jack, Allen, Shark. Once I get all of them, I can just build a team the way I want. That was my core. Because my top teams were the Jags, were the Bengals, and it was the Panthers. And they all had cores. So like once I signed those cores, because they were all young, once I signed those cores, I can draft or sign anybody who I want by the time I'm able to compete for a Super Bowl.
That is well said. Wakanda, you got any closing thoughts on being a GM? Being a GM 101?
I think everybody said everything. Value your draft picks. Make sure you are doing your weekly trainings. Make sure your young players are playing. Let go of the old folks. Let them go. Let them walk just like they do in real life. Yeah, man. That's pretty much everything. I think we touched on everything.
Right. Red Boy, closing thoughts?
Just don't shoot yourself in the foot, man. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Don't trade players is going to give you a high penalty to your cap. Don't draft players and not progress them, not take advantage of everything we just told you. Don't not scout players. Just everything we already said everything. I mean,
you
everything.
Gotta scout. You gotta scout.
Yeah.
Gotta scout, man.
No matter if you're going to be there for the draft or not, you got to scout.
Absolutely. And let your young players play. You have to let your young players play. Even if you feel like you're not winning, build them up. Because you got to think long-term. Because this is franchise.
This is not one season. We don't do this 1 or 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah, you have to think.
It takes about 5 to 6 weeks to get through a season. On average, it's 16 games in a regular season. We advance every 2 days, so that's 32 days, and then we got 4 playoff games. So you add another 8 days to that, and then we got an off-season process and a draft. It takes about 5 to 6 weeks to get through a season, and we do 7 of them. Over time, you can learn how to build and progress your team. Don't get discouraged if you got a shitty team or a shitty player in season 1, or you drafted a player, he's a rookie, he ain't that good. Build him up. Build him up.
Yeah, and again, know who you trading with. Don't let the rich get richer. You understand what I'm saying?
No.
Listen.
Worry about your team and what you
I say that. Listen. If you're gonna trade with the rich, make sure. Yeah, I hate to say this word, rape them. Make sure you getting the bang for your buck, man, if you are going to trade with those players and stuff. Because again, you have to think long term. You just heard Kid, he's won multiple Super Bowls. He said it, value your draft picks. You know what I mean? And you have to do that. Because the younger the player, the cheaper the contract. If you can have a young player on a cheap contract that you're building up through time, that's a dub. That's an automatic dub. Automatic. Sorry, Red Boy. That wasn't even a shot at you, though.
It's all good, man. You saying that is not going to make me have to deal with that any more than I already.
I'm not a proponent of raising the price for that purpose, but at the same time, make sure you get value. Get value back. And the other part that y'all didn't hit on probably in these closing thoughts was realize what your assets are. Again, if you're not using players that people are coming up and asking you for, don't be stubborn. Don't be selfish and say, no, I'm not trading them, even though they have zero stats recorded on the season. Don't. If you don't have any plans to play the player or use the player, then turn that player into a Kid is cracking up.
Because people don't know how common that is in our
no bullshit. No bullshit.
Oh man.
Right here.
And this is multiple people. We're not just talking one or two people. This is a very common thing.
No. We'll I know we talk amongst ourselves, and then other players I talk to in the league, and we'll be like, yeah, this player got drafted such and such. Oh yeah, man, look at this player card. Oh, he's a beast. Oh shoot, man, I know such and such is cooking with him. You go to his stats, Fama got like 0 in the stat column. Like, what?
Oh my goodness.
Keep talking about, I don't know why I'm not winning, or I don't know why I can't do such and such. I don't know. Well, that's one of the reasons, bro.
That's why.
Well, my advice is don't be stubborn. If somebody's coming to you and asking for that player and you're not using that player, get something back for them. Why not? You should, for one, I feel like if people are coming to you and asking you for players, you should, for one, feel honored, pleasantly surprised and honored that that somebody wants to trade you something for a player that you're not using. That should be a huge compliment and flattery for one. Right. But take advantage of it and get something back for that. So that's my advice. And weekly trainings. Again, I can't stress enough, because at the end of every season, I go through and look at after the playoffs. I go through and look at players, teams on in their rosters, and seeing how young players that got drafted earlier in that year have progressed, or even some of the other young superstars throughout the league, and see how they progressed. And when I see that, somebody's rookie quarterback or somebody's rookie wide receiver or rookie linebacker wasn't getting any weekly trainings added to them throughout an entire season as a rookie or as a first year or second year player, when they're going to get the most out of that XP boost, it's sad to see. It's tough to see, and we just want people to be better at that. We want people to be able to take advantage of the same things that the elites are taking advantage of. So that way you can't say, I don't know how they did this or how they did that. We're now, again, we're hoping this podcast is providing the tools to at least help guide people into how to develop their team, and hopefully that leads to them competing and getting more wins. That's what the ultimate goal is here.
Yep.
Yeah, man. People listen. Our ultimate goal is to make this league better. Even though it's already the best league around, we always are finding ways to tweak this and to tweak that and to make sure our users are taken care of and everything. Like, use this podcast as a tool to make your team better. We want CGI to be a league full of dogs, to the point where when we go to other leagues, if we're a part of other leagues, we dominate those leagues.
Yeah. Yep.
And to be honest with you, that shit's already happening. To be honest. So we're on the right path. We are on the right path.
Yeah. We don't want the same person winning the Super Bowl all the time. I mean, if we do, I want it to be me, but that's just that's not realistic. But it would be great to be able to send, the CGI Bowl trophy to a different person every season. That'd be great.
Indeed. I'm all for that shit.
I don't want Wakanda to win the next one. Like he already got his. Let's move on to the next person.
I mean, it's bad to say they got multiple bowls. I'm trying to put my name in the rafters too.
We don't have it physically though. The ones that have it multiply, we want it physically, like right there.
I understand.
Yeah, everybody wants the trophy now. All right, fellas. Well, I think that'll wrap it up. Before I close it out, just wanted to give a shout out to our Tampa Bay Buccaneers owner, AJ Baller. He just recently retired from our Madden League. He's a longtime member, has been with us since Madden 16. So just want to give him a quick shout out and thank him for his time in the league. Maybe he'll be back sometime in the future, but he just took on a new job. So congratulations to him. And along
shout
with
out
that,
to Nurse Aaron.
Yeah, nurse AJ out there helping.
Congratulations, Fokker.
Shout out to him. And then, of course, we want to welcome our new Tampa Bay Buccaneers owner, because we do have a farm system that allows us to bring in new members. And we've recently brought in our guy K-Web, who has been in Gridiron he's been in CGI Gridiron since last year. He actually was one of our first guys that we wanted to call up, but it didn't work out, so he didn't make it to our league last year. But he came back for Gridiron this year, and patience paid off, as now he gets to take over Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So good luck with Cam Bam and the Panthers and the Saints. Good luck with that, Caleb.
Right.
Welcome to the league.
No bullshit.
I think his first name was Dev. I think Dev initially.
Oh man, that was a tough first game. His first two games were Dev and Dave Cool. And then I play him next week, so he'll get his first one next week. So
out of here, man.
All right, so that'll close the podcast. So again, want to thank our special guest, Train, our Buffalo Bills owner. Thank you for hopping on the podcast with us, Train.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you for having me.
Yes, indeed. The Dream Kid, we want to thank you for jumping on the podcast with us as well.
Thank you for having me, man.
All right. And then, of course, my co-commissioners, Wakanda, the most recent CGI Bowl champion. We'll talk more about that on our next episode. But, again, this was all about GM 101. But thanks, of course, for joining us, Wakanda.
Indeed. Thank you for having me, fellas. This was fun.
And Red Boy Lightning, the Enforcer, he was super juiced up to do this episode. And I think it panned out just as he planned to. So thanks for joining in, Red Boy.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right. And this has been the Commissioner's Report, a CGI Madden League podcast. You can follow us, the CGI Madden League, a PlayStation 4 Madden League, on Twitter, not on Instagram, on Twitter and on YouTube. We're at CGI Madden League on Twitter. We're Clutch Gene League on YouTube, and of course you can download our podcast from Podbean, which I believe we're Clutch Gene League on Podbean as well. For my co-commissioners, Red Boy Lightning, for Matt 88 Titan Thanos, for the Solution 113 who's not with us tonight. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm the Game 836. Be easy, everybody.